The night was supposed to be another star-studded episode of The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. The lights were set, the cameras ready, and the audience buzzing with anticipation. Fallon, known for his easy charm and ability to make even the stiffest guests loosen up, had secured what seemed like a golden booking: Prince Harry. But the trouble began long before Harry walked onto the stage. According to multiple insiders, his team sent a list of requirements to Fallon's producers that looked less like a guest writer and more like a royal decree. The list included seating preferences, camera angles to avoid, topics off limits, and most shockingly, an insistence that Harry be addressed as His Royal Highness throughout the show. This demand raised eyebrows immediately. Harry and Meghan officially stepped down as senior royals in 2020, and the late Queen Elizabeth II made it clear they could no longer use HRH styles in any official capacity. Yet here he was in New York City, clinging to the title as though it were his lifeline. For Fallon's team, it felt absurd. This wasn't Buckingham Palace, it was NBC Studios. And American audiences aren't exactly known for bowing to titles they fought a revolution to reject. Behind the scenes, producers tried to negotiate. They offered to introduce him as Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, a title he still holds. But Harry's camp allegedly pushed back, arguing that only His Royal Highness would do. The demand was not just tone-deaf, it was catastrophic, setting the stage for one of the most humiliating public meltdowns of Harry's career. Jimmy Fallon is not known for confrontation. He has built his career on being affable, agreeable, even goofy. But when Harry arrived on set, still insisting on his royal styling, Fallon's patience wore thin. The show began with applause, the usual warm-up jokes, and Fallon's trademark enthusiasm. Harry walked on stage, smiling tightly, waving to the crowd. But as Fallon prepared to introduce him, Harry leaned in and reminded him, "Don't forget, His Royal Highness." That was it. The breaking point. Fallon, ever the comedian, tried at first to play it off. He chuckled, looked at the audience, and quipped, "Highness? Buddy, this is New York. You're lucky if they call you by your name." The audience laughed, thinking it was just Fallon's humor. But Harry didn't. His expression hardened, and he leaned in again, this time more forcefully. "No, I mean it. I expect to be addressed properly." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Fallon, realizing this wasn't a joke anymore, decided to put his foot down. Looking Harry squarely in the eye, he delivered the line that would echo across tabloids and social media for days. "You're not a highness here. This is late-night TV, not Buckingham Palace." The audience erupted, half in laughter, half in shock. Stallone's earlier walkout from Graham Norton had set a precedent for humiliating talk show clashes, but this was different. This was Jimmy Fallon, the eternal nice guy, publicly slapping down royal entitlement. Harry, visibly flustered, tried to smile, but the damage was already done. Fallon had spoken what everyone in the room was thinking. In America, titles mean nothing. Respect is earned, not demanded. The tension only escalated from there. Harry, visibly rattled, tried to continue with the interview, but every question fell flat. Fallon asked about his Netflix projects. Harry muttered short answers. Fallon joked about his polo matches. Harry didn't laugh. The energy drained from the room, the awkwardness thick enough to choke on. The audience, once enthusiastic, now sat in uncomfortable silence. Then came the moment no one could have predicted. As Fallon transitioned to a comedy sketch segment, something lighthearted to reset the mood, Harry interrupted. He leaned into his microphone and repeated, "I should be introduced as His Royal Highness." The audience gasped audibly. Fallon froze, stunned that Harry would double down after already being rebuked. Then, with a sharp shake of his head, Fallon turned to security and, half joking but fully serious, declared, "You know what? If that's how it's going to be, maybe he shouldn't be here." The studio went silent. Security approached the stage. Harry's face flushed red, a mix of anger and humiliation as he realized what was happening. The cameras caught every moment. Fallon dismissively waving him off, the guards stepping closer, and Harry reluctantly rising from his chair. He tried to salvage dignity with a final wave to the crowd, but it was too late. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just watched, stunned. As Prince Harry, the man who once stood at the heart of the world's most famous family, was escorted out of a late-night show for arrogance he could not let go of. The symbolism was brutal. Here was a man who had walked away from the monarchy to embrace independence, now clinging desperately to the very titles he claimed to reject. His demand for respect had earned him only ridicule. His insistence on status had left him stripped of it in the most public way possible. And Jimmy Fallon? He had just delivered one of the most devastating blows to Harry's public persona. Not with malice, but with the simple reminder that in the real world, no one is above being told, "You are not Highness here." Prince Harry's walkout from The Tonight Show was not just a bad night of television, it was a catastrophic blow to an already fragile public image. For years, Harry has spoken about humility, about stepping back from the monarchy to live a normal life. Yet here he was, demanding recognition as His Royal Highness on a comedy show, proving once again that the man who rejected the crown can't seem to live without it. The contradiction was glaring. When Harry sat down with Oprah, he spoke of liberation. When he promoted his memoir Spare, he spoke of honesty, authenticity, and the desire to move beyond titles. But behind the scenes, reports keep surfacing of him clinging to the very status symbols he publicly disavows. The Fallon fiasco didn't create this narrative, it validated it. For the American public, this was especially damning. The United States has always been ambivalent toward royalty, fascinated by its glamour but deeply skeptical of its relevance. Harry and Meghan once embodied a fresh chapter, modernizing the idea of monarchy and carving out independence. But with this incident, Harry appeared not as a modern prince, but as a man trapped by insecurity, desperately demanding recognition that no longer belongs to him. Commentators on both sides of the Atlantic didn't hold back. British tabloids pounced, calling him the Prince of Entitlement, and gleefully replaying the clip of Fallon's retort. American late-night competitors made jokes at his expense, mocking the absurdity of demanding royal styling in a country founded on rejecting monarchy. Social media memes painted him as a toddler crying for his crown, a man who had traded castles for cameras but couldn't let go of the trappings of privilege. The damage went deeper than mockery. Branding experts warned that Harry's credibility was crumbling. He wants to be seen as authentic, relatable, and down-to-earth, one analyst explained. But incidents like this undermine the brand. You can't market yourself as humble while demanding royal deference in the same breath. This wasn't just a bad look, it was a fatal contradiction. Every misstep reinforced the perception of hypocrisy, and every public humiliation chipped away at the sympathy that had once made Harry and Meghan America's sweethearts. The Fallon incident became Exhibit A in the growing case against their relevance, fueling a narrative that they were no longer modern reformers, but out-of-touch opportunists. But Harry didn't arrive at The Tonight Show alone, not literally, but figuratively. Meghan's shadow loomed large over the entire fiasco. Sources close to the production whispered that Meghan had pushed Harry to insist on being addressed as His Royal Highness. For her, titles were more than vanity, they were strategy. Maintaining royal styling, even unofficially, meant maintaining global prestige. It meant staying marketable to Hollywood studios, publishers, and streaming giants. Without the sheen of royalty, Meghan feared, their projects risked becoming just another celebrity side hustle. Insiders pointed to Meghan's history of carefully curating appearances, from her wardrobe choices to the words used in press releases. They claim she viewed Harry's Fallon appearance as an opportunity to reassert their royal brand. But instead of elevating them, it backfired spectacularly. Fallon's sharp rejection, "You're not Highness here," didn't just embarrass Harry, it humiliated Meghan's entire strategy. Critics quickly pounced on this angle. Was Harry acting on his own, or was he the mouthpiece of Meghan's relentless ambition? Commentators noted how often Harry's public missteps aligned with Meghan's pursuit of media influence. From Netflix documentaries to their explosive interviews, the Sussex brand has always been driven by Meghan's vision. But the Fallon incident raised an uncomfortable question: was Harry sacrificing dignity to feed Meghan's obsession with relevance? The online backlash didn't spare her either. Social media users mocked Meghan as the power behind the throne, pushing Harry into embarrassing situations for the sake of their shared brand. Memes showed Meghan handing Harry cue cards that read, "Call me Highness," while Fallon rolled his eyes. Others joked that Meghan had turned Harry into a parody of himself, a man unable to function without clinging to titles she insisted still mattered. Even sympathetic observers admitted the optics were terrible. Harry, once seen as the brave prince who broke free from the monarchy's chains, now looked like a puppet dancing to Meghan's tune. The Fallon disaster didn't just tarnish his image, it exposed the cracks in their carefully constructed narrative of independence. And for Meghan, this was especially dangerous. She has fought to establish herself as more than just the wife of Harry, an activist, a businesswoman, a media figure in her own right. But when her strategies implode on live television, the world doesn't see her as a visionary. They see her as the architect of their downfall, pulling strings behind the scenes and leading Harry into humiliation. When Prince Harry first arrived in America, the reception was warm. Americans loved the idea of the rebellious royal who dared to challenge the crown. Oprah's interview, Netflix's glossy docuseries, and even his memoir Spare initially positioned Harry as a sympathetic figure, an outsider standing up to an outdated institution. But the Fallon fiasco was a turning point. For American audiences, Harry's demand to be addressed as His Royal Highness wasn't just arrogant, it was laughably tone-deaf. This is a country that fought a bloody revolution to escape monarchy. Titles like Duke and Highness carry curiosity here, but not reverence. The insistence on royal styling felt like an insult to American independence and a betrayal of the very values Harry once claimed to admire. Twitter exploded within minutes. A viral tweet captured the mood. "We fought a revolution in 1776 so we'd never have to call anyone Highness again. Sorry, Harry." It racked up over 500,000 likes. Another user wrote, "If you need people to call you Highness on late-night TV, you're not a prince, you're just desperate." TikTok piled on, remixing Fallon's now famous line, "You're not Highness here," into comedy sketches, rap beats, and parody videos. It became a cultural catchphrase overnight, shorthand for mocking people who demand respect they haven't earned. Worse still, opinion polls showed a shift. Surveys conducted after the incident revealed that American approval ratings for Harry plummeted, particularly among younger demographics that had once been his strongest supporters. What had once been seen as bravery, his break from the royal family, was now seen as entitlement. Late-night comedians, including Fallon's rivals, capitalized on the story. Stephen Colbert quipped, "Imagine leaving Buckingham Palace only to demand that Jimmy Fallon treat you like a king. That's not a royal, it's a diva." Trevor Noah mocked him with biting precision. "Harry, my guy, you can't be a highness in a country where we call our bosses dude." The message from America was loud and clear. Respect in this country is earned, not inherited. And Harry had just learned that lesson the hard way, in front of millions. If Harry thought his family back in the UK would quietly sympathize with his embarrassment, he was mistaken. The royal family, already weary of his media antics, reportedly viewed the Fallon disaster with a mixture of exasperation and resignation. Palace insiders whispered that King Charles and Prince William were not surprised by the meltdown. To them, it was simply another example of Harry sabotaging himself. For years, the monarchy has maintained a firm line. Harry and Meghan cannot use HRH styles in public or for commercial purposes. It was one of Queen Elizabeth II's final, unyielding decisions before her death. The instruction was clear. Once you step down from royal duty, you step away from royal privilege. By demanding the title on American television, Harry wasn't just humiliating himself, he was openly defying the crown. Royal aides reportedly called the behavior embarrassing, with one unnamed source telling the press, "It confirms why the late Queen insisted the titles not be used." Harry cannot separate duty from entitlement. The timing made it worse. Back in Britain, William and Catherine were quietly winning hearts through charity events, school visits, and a dignified presence that required no theatrics. Every time Meghan and Harry made headlines for controversy, the contrast became sharper. One couple working, the other demanding recognition. The British press ran with it. Front-page headlines screamed, "Fallon says what Palace thinks, Harry is no highness." Commentators framed Fallon as an unlikely ally of the monarchy, delivering a rebuke more powerful than any official statement. After all, if even American talk show hosts were rejecting Harry's claims to grandeur, what credibility did he have left? Behind palace walls, the message was even sterner. Insiders suggested the incident may accelerate moves to further strip the Sussexes of symbolic privileges. Discussions of removing remaining titles, once considered too drastic, were reportedly back on the table. The Fallon debacle had proven what many royals feared, that Harry's obsession with status was now a liability to the institution itself. Perhaps most damning was the silence. No words of support, no expressions of sympathy, no attempt to spin the story in his favor. The palace let the humiliation speak for itself. For Harry, the absence of family defense was louder than condemnation. It was abandonment. The Fallon debacle wasn't an isolated embarrassment. It was the latest in a long chain of events that reveal a disturbing pattern of entitlement surrounding Prince Harry from the moment he stepped. Back from royal duties in 2020, Harry positioned himself as a man seeking freedom from the burden of monarchy. He told the world he wanted independence, privacy, and the ability to build a life outside the palace walls. But time and again, his actions have contradicted those claims. Take the infamous private jet scandals. Harry and Meghan often spoke about climate change, urging the public to live responsibly, yet were caught flying private dozens of times in a single year. Each trip belied their carefully curated image as environmentally conscious advocates. Critics asked, how can you preach about carbon footprints while leaving such a large one yourself? Then there were the luxury accommodations. Reports surfaced that Harry demanded five-star hotels and extravagant security measures during charity events like the Invictus Games and the Well Child Awards. At one point, organizers allegedly pushed back, saying veteran funds and charitable donations should not bankroll his taste for royal living. Even in legal battles, the pattern held. Harry took the UK government to court, demanding taxpayer-funded security despite no longer being a working royal. His argument? His family deserved special treatment. The court of public opinion, however, saw entitlement, an insistence on privileges he voluntarily walked away from. Now, with the Fallon fiasco, the dots connected more clearly than ever. His demand to be called His Royal Highness was not just a slip of ego, it was the culmination of years of behavior that revealed an obsession with status. It proved that Harry was less interested in independence and more interested in exporting royal deference across the Atlantic. Cultural critics noted that this entitlement reflected deeper insecurities. Harry, once overshadowed by William, seemed desperate to prove his importance outside palace walls. But instead of building credibility through hard work and humility, he clung to titles, perks, and special treatment. The Fallon incident stripped away the last layer of illusion, exposing him not as a reformer but as a man addicted to privilege, and audiences noticed. What Americans once saw as bravery, they now saw as hypocrisy. What the British once tolerated as youthful rebellion, they now condemned as arrogance. In both countries, Harry's reputation was no longer that of a victim escaping an institution, but of a man proving again and again that he could not let go of it. If Harry thought the fallout would be contained to one awkward night of television, he underestimated the ruthlessness of the media. Within hours, late-night rivals were roasting him. Stephen Colbert joked, "Prince Harry wants to be called Highness? I thought Spare was his memoir, not his ego." Trevor Noah quipped, "Harry, buddy, if you walk into a New York bar demanding to be called Highness, you're leaving with a black eye, not a crown." Saturday Night Live wasted no time parodying the fiasco. A skit aired the following week featuring a Harry look-alike barging onto Fallon's set, demanding to be called His Royal Highness, only to be booted off stage by security in exaggerated fashion. The audience howled, but the satire cut deep. It captured Harry's desperation perfectly. Tabloids on both sides of the Atlantic feasted on the scandal. The Sun dubbed him the Duke of Delusion, while the Daily Mail splashed headlines like, "From spare to spare change, Harry humiliated on Fallon." In the US, gossip outlets labeled the moment cringe television at its finest, framing Harry as a diva rather than a dignitary. Even mainstream outlets piled on. Analysts in the New York Times and The Guardian questioned whether Harry's credibility as a public figure had been fatally damaged. Could he continue speaking about mental health, authenticity, and humility after such a brazen display of entitlement? The consensus was grim. Every public appearance from here on out would be viewed through the lens of Fallon's devastating line, "You're not Highness here." Social media, of course, was merciless. Memes depicted Harry sitting on Fallon's couch wearing a plastic crown, crying as security dragged him away. Others edited clips of the fiasco into scenes from The Crown or Game of Thrones, mocking Harry as a wannabe king who couldn't command respect even on a talk show stage. The most viral meme of all was simple. A still image of Fallon pointing at Harry with the caption, "Not Highness here." It spread across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, becoming a cultural catchphrase for mocking anyone acting entitled. The relentless mockery wasn't just comedic, it was reputational. Every joke, every headline, every meme chipped away at the seriousness Harry once commanded as a royal. His legacy, once tied to military service, philanthropy, and breaking barriers, was now overshadowed by one catastrophic demand. In the brutal court of public opinion, Fallon didn't just kick Harry off his show, he kicked him off the pedestal Harry had been clinging to for years. If there was any doubt left about Prince Harry's unraveling image, Fallon's sharp dismissal sealed it. The phrase, "You are not Highness here," wasn't just a witty comeback. It was the final blow to the fragile illusion that Harry still commanded the reverence of a prince outside palace walls. In the seconds after Fallon's words, the symbolism became unmistakable. The cameras caught Harry's stunned expression, eyes narrowed, jaw tight, the mask of charm slipping into naked fury. For a man who has spent years crafting a narrative of authenticity and liberation, it was a devastating visual. Entitlement laid bare under the harsh lights of a comedy stage. What should have been a late-night puff piece became a global humiliation. Fallon didn't merely deny Harry his demand, he embodied the sentiment of millions. Ordinary Americans who prize independence and authenticity over inherited privilege saw Fallon's rebuke as a reflection of their own disdain for entitlement. And in Britain, where Harry's every misstep is scrutinized, the moment was framed as poetic justice. A late-night host succeeding where royal courtiers had failed, publicly reminding Harry that titles are meaningless without substance. The aftermath cemented the damage. Social media crowned Fallon as the hero of the night, while Harry trended worldwide as a cautionary tale of fallen royalty. Commentators noted the irony. Harry had sought American soil to escape judgment from his family, yet in the land of freedom, he faced rejection more brutal than anything Buckingham Palace could have orchestrated. And the optics? Catastrophic. Every attempt to rebrand as humanitarian, as truth-teller, as independent thinker was undercut by this single display of insecurity. The clip of Fallon's dismissal, replayed endlessly, became the shorthand for Harry's decline. No matter what projects he launches, no matter what causes he champions, the ghost of that line will follow him. "You are not Highness here." In that instant, Harry's journey came full circle. He left the monarchy claiming to want independence. He arrived in America seeking respect. But respect is not granted by titles. It is earned through humility, consistency, and integrity. And on Fallon's stage, Harry proved he had none of those. The final blow wasn't Fallon's words alone. It was the realization, broadcast across the world, that Prince Harry's crown no longer carries weight. His insistence on being a highness only made clear the truth. He has become, in the eyes of the public, not a royal exile carving his path, but a man clinging desperately to what he has already lost.